What's up, everyone? Today I'm spinning the wax with Aaren Pantke of MOLDER, and we're listening to Impetigo's Horror of the Zombies. Don't go anywhere, it all starts right now. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of Spinning the Wax. My name is John Garcia, aka Stay Puffed, the Metal Marshmallow, and your friendly neighborhood headbanger. We are in for a disgustingly good time today as we are listening to death metal from Illinois, courtesy of death metal from Illinois. Aaren Pantke is the vocalist, guitarist, and riff master for MOLDER, who just a couple of months ago released their third full-length record, Catastrophic Reconfiguration, through Prosthetic Records. Aaren brings on a record from underground death metal legends Impetigo, or Impetigo. We're honestly not really sure how to pronounce it, though I think he says that he gets his from the band themselves. But this band not only helped inspire MOLDER's twisted, over-the-top, and sometimes even goofy lyrics, but also were one of the first bands to add horror movie samples to the beginning of their songs. Though Impetigo never really got the due that they may have been deserved in the wider world, they've made their mark on death metal, including with their 1992 album, Horror of the Zombies, which is our pick today. While ripping and stomping through this record, Aaren and I talk about how he became so interested in horror movies and death metal in the first place, as well as the massive tape collection inherited by his dad, and why Impetigo has made such an influence not only on MOLDER, but on the wider genre as a whole. He also chats about how he's more focused on creating amazing riffs rather than any sort of emotional or reflective lyrics, which is why MOLDER's material leans the way that it does. And somewhere in there, we swap some stories about hearing actual honest-to-God metal on the fucking radio growing up, as well as an incredible exchange about how fans pretend to know lyrics that Aaren himself doesn't even know. It fucking killed me. My friends and fellow headbangers, please welcome Aaren Pantke from MOLDER to Spinning the Wax. Aaren, it's so nice to talk to you again, dude. Welcome. Thanks for hopping on with me today, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you again, John.
Yeah, likewise. So we were talking about it before we recorded, but since the last time that we spoke, MOLDER has been up to quite a lot. You had an album, Engrossed in Decay, come out when we spoke, and that was your first. It wasn't your first album, but the MOLDER's first album to really get out when there wasn't a pandemic fucking like destroying the world and everything like that. And I remember we spoke about how excited you were to just play fucking like, brainless, gory death metal to a bunch of sickos and shit like that. So please catch me up on the last 2 years, man. I know you've gone on a great many tours. You have a record coming out pretty soon. What's been going on with you, dude?
Well, you pretty much just covered it. We did an awful lot of touring this last year. We did Maryland Death Fest. We went back to Maui again. Um, and yeah, we finished and recorded and submitted a brand new record due out November 8th through Prosthetic Records and Head Split Records for the cassettes. And then that's pretty much it. Just staying busy doing shows, working at home. Otherwise, same old, same old.
That's awesome. So you are obviously no stranger to the death metal scene at all. I know even before MOLDER, you've been like in and out of bands all the time, like making records, playing shows, all of that shit. Like you're like, the few, the proud, the lifers, dude. Do you think over the last little bit, you've kind of seen like a difference in the way MOLDER has been playing and like approaching shows and how people have been recognizing the band and stuff like that as you've like signed with Prosthetic and gotten these records out?
Yeah, weirdly enough, I mean, obviously touring, not counting, we just get to do like a lot less. Everything has a radius clause.
Mm,
Everything has like a stipulation to it, which is understandable.
sure.
Obviously, people need to make sure that they're making it worth their while to book us. But other than that, that's pretty much it. It's just we've been a lot more selective with the shows that we are able to do, and with that, I feel like the shows we've chosen to do have put us in front of audiences that we, I guess, haven't been in front of before. Especially the last couple of shows we've done in particular. Selling a lot of merch to people that are like telling us like, this is our first time seeing, which was like super great and gratifying, but also just super strange being that, we're at home playing at like Reggie's, which is our
Yeah.
home venue and
Oh
stuff.
yeah, I've been to
So it
Reggie's
was
before, sure.
interesting. Oh yeah. But yeah, just pretty much that. Just getting in front of different people for sure.
Today, we are going to be diving into a record from a band that I know is hometown heroes to you and your boys and everything like that. I had never heard of them before, and then looked it
Sure.
up and saw that how pretty influential this band has been to a lot of different death metal bands that a lot of people are likely to know out there. So we're going to be listening to Horror of the Zombies by, I was saying Impetigo, you were saying Impetigo. I looked it up on the Mayo Clinic. They so Impetigo. I have no idea how the fuck we're going to do it. We'll go with what the band says, dude. But why do you love this album, and why did you want to bring it on today, dude?
I just love Impetigo. Everything that they've done is super sick. I chose this one just because it's the lengthier of their releases, and I guess a more well-rounded full length, if that was like the goal here. Their previous debut record, Ultimo Mondo Cannibale, I guess is probably how you say it. It's also awesome, but it's just a lot more sample and a lot less music, and
Yeah.
it's also just a shorter release. So while this one still has the samples and the vibe intact, it's definitely, like I said, just a more rounded release. Other than that, just they're the Wizards of Gore. They kind of innovated gore grind, or like I guess more extreme death metal as far as I'm concerned. And I feel like most people would agree, whether they think the band is good or not. They had their mark, and they were definitely influential and continue to be. So I thought it was an important one to put out there. Probably, like you said, not one that gets thrown out there too often.
No, but that's like exactly why that I wanted to like start this series and have artists talked about albums that influence them. Because sure, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people, your Iron Maidens, your Metallica Slayers in the death metal realm, like your Deaths and your Cannibal Corpses and everything like that. But like I feel like this, you mentioned like some people might like it, some people might not. I mean, if you're a death metal completionist or just like a fan of the genre in general and just want to get your hands on anything that's like disgusting and gory, I mean, I think that this fits the bill. I was listening to that previous one you said, Ultimo Mondo Cannibale. I think your guess is as good as mine, dude. I don't fucking know. And you're right. It didn't sound as like quote unquote like well-rounded or anything like that, but this one that we're about to listen to, I listened to a Mortician record recently. It was the one, the Chainsaw Massacre. I can't remember the name off it. Blue cover with the woman tied up on it,
Oh,
and
Chainsaw Dismemberment.
that's the one.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
the one with the chainsaw. Fuck.
yeah.
But like that. And then going back and listening to this one, it's like you can draw a straight fucking line from what
Oh
Mortician
yeah.
were doing on that to what Impetigo is doing on this record.
Definitely, especially with the samples and just the overall vibe, the horror freak shit definitely is their bread and butter.
Yeah, man. So this record hails from 1992. The band has been around or was around since about the late 80s, and haven't. I mean, there's a lot of split and compilations and stuff like that out there. I don't know if you've dove into any of those. I'll get a little bit overwhelmed when I look at their Metal Archives
A
page and
lot
see
of
all that
it's the
shit.
same release, funny enough. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
the same two or three demos just being re-released with other bands, like Blood or Transgressor or whatever. But don't be intimidated by it. It's not like Archigathis or whatever, where there's quite literally hundreds of releases.
Yeah,
But
no.
yeah,
All right, man. So the last thing I'll ask you before we dive into this record is, I mean, like you kind of hit the nail on the head and mentioned it, but so people should expect, death metal should expect disgusting lyrics, of which we'll talk about how they influence you and Molder and everything like that. Because especially with the new record, there's a lot of like comparables and a lot of parallels and shit like that, with just the fucking nasty, disgusting shit that you guys are able to come up with. I'm curious as far as like in your area, I know they're hometown heroes. Are they like local legends? Are they big around your area? And why do you think that they never really took off outside of the niche kind of like death metal bubble?
so they're like local-ish. They're from Central Illinois, down
Okay.
by like Illinois State or University of Illinois, so down by the colleges. And I think that's a big part of why they didn't really take off. They just weren't a part of the Chicago scene
I
or
got
like
you.
just the Northern Illinois scene that was, I guess, getting a little bit more attention. I mean, you can argue that a lot of those bands didn't really get their due as well. But
Mm.
with them in particular, I think that being out in the sticks definitely hurt them. It also gave them this kind of like, in my opinion, I mean, granted, I wasn't alive at the time while they were active, but they always just had like a mystique to them. Like instead of being like in the city doing like your generic alley shot. They're like at chicken coops and farms and just like I don't know, they
Okay.
just like brought an extra kind of deranged vibe to like
Yeah.
their presentation. And um but yeah, as far as being like locally known, like yes, especially by like old heads around here, but
Hmm.
that's again kind of why I picked this record. I don't want to say they're a forgotten about band. They definitely hold notoriety in the underground and are definitely kings as far as that's concerned. But I don't know, as far as just general like listening goes, I think that's a band most people have never heard of, let alone actually listened to. So yeah, I don't know. Definitely not revered as you'd think, but there is a niche of people that high or hold them in high regards for sure.
Hell yeah. And case in point right here, man. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm a death metal expert or anything like that, but I've certainly been listening to metal for more than half of my life now. And this is my first go around with this band, too. So, the exact point, and I'm glad that you chose this band. So, let's get into it, man. We're going to start off with the Henry Lee Lucas sample. And this band, from my understanding, was one of the, maybe not the first, but one of the first to really start adding like horror movie shit samples and everything like that in there. So let's do this, man. I'm going to get my lights going, and we are going to get into Horror of the Zombies by Impetigo. I wonder how much of this album is actually samples, because some of these can go like pretty long.
A few of them definitely like go on for like almost minutes. That's
Yeah, I
why
think
I
this
picked
one
this
does
one
too.
in particular.
It's very like, I guess for lack of a better term, meat and potatoes. But over here,
Oh,
like, you
absolutely.
know, just like this song right here, strolling through my boneyard, a ghoulish midnight stride, a walk among corpses, fills my heart with pride, Aaron.
Yeah, Stevo is the poet for sure. But yeah, man, it's very less is more, but I think that's kind of its appeal. They make every note count. And on this album, like I said, they it's made it apparent. Whereas the first one's a lot more primitive. I don't want to call it immature, but just again, not as focused, not as grounded. This one definitely, you could just tell they were going for it. They had something in mind. It wasn't just let's throw something at the wall and see what sticks and try new things. It was refining themselves and finding their sound for sure.
You said the word that I was exactly thinking of, which was just refined. And I mean, it reminds me very much of what you and the boys have done on the last couple of MOLDER records. I mean, I think that, you know, the Engrossed in Decay was definitely a step up from the debut. And then listening to Catastrophic Reconfiguration is definitely another one where it's like, y'all know who you are and know what you can do within the bounds of what's going on to where you know, it's not, again, you know, I hate saying like more mature record, but again, more refined. You know where the band stands, and you can do more with that sound.
I 100% agree. That was the whole focus with this one. I even like stepped back super hard and I let the others contribute a lot more than I typically in the past would have, just simply due to the fact that we have like kind of cemented a sound for ourselves. We've done, multiple records where I don't have to like try and figure out our identity, so to say. Not that that was ever super important, but it
Yeah.
just became apparent. And, I don't want to become too self-aware and kind of beat a dead horse with a shtick or whatever. But it was just about just pushing that wheel along and just continuing to do what we do without, I guess, just complete regurgitation or repetition of just the same old.
Yeah, and because you used to previously just write everything, correct?
About I mean here and there, like Dominic would have a riff, but other than that, yeah, it was for the most part just me.
So I had a question, but I wanted to let this sample go real quick. This was another one that I think goes on for like a minute and a half or something like that.
Oh yeah, it's so iconic too, just because it makes you like look up and look into what it is. Deadbeat at Dawn, if you're curious, or Deadbeat by Dawn, excuse me. I'm not positive which or other, but
It is Deadbeat at Dawn. I'm cheating. I have the Wikipedia article up on here, and
it's all good.
one of the first albums that I remember listening to as a young budding metalhead that had quotes in it was Children of Bodom did that on all of their albums to begin with,
Okay.
and like Hatebreeder starts with a quote from Amadeus of all things, and then Follow the Reaper has a bunch of Exorcist 3 quotes and stuff like that, and then when I started delving
So are
into,
they like re-recordings or are they actual like experts from the movie and not?
they're experts from the movie, yeah.
All right, cool. I just wasn't sure if they just like I guess re-narrated it in like their own style to fit the album, which would also be sick. Like I've seen bands do that, taking reference.
Thank you to whoever edited these Wikipedia articles for doing this. Although I was going to leave it up to you. I'm sure that you might know some of these quotes by the just off the top of your head. Given I imagine that you've
Oh
listened to
yeah,
this like tons and tons and tons of times.
I know some of these quotes better than I know some of my own music. If I'm being sincere,
Well,
this
you've had more
album's
time in your life to listen to those than your music, right?
oh, definitely, definitely.
So I'm curious, man. I don't remember if we talked about this before. It was 2 years ago, so apologize if I
Oh,
asked
you're
you
good.
some things here and there. But what was your like? When did you first start getting into like gory horror slasher stuff? And was it like death metal first, horror movies first, and like what about it like interested you to start going down that rabbit hole?
Um, it was, I suppose, simultaneous. Like obviously, growing up, I was familiar with just Halloween classics, just
Yeah.
the season or whatever. You just watch the old Halloween movies, Nightmare on Elm Street, etc., Scream, whatever. But yeah, just getting into bands like Impetigo and just like piqued my interest in a lot of the B movie kind of grindhouse era. So anything between the 60s and like I guess early 90s really of just underground independent movies. Things like Cannibal Holocaust, things like getting into like trauma stuff. I don't know, just it was, I guess, coincidentally at the same time as I was getting into a lot of like Razorback Records material. So
Mm.
bands like Ghoul or Splatterhouse or Fondle Corpse or whatever, just that early 2000s, pretty much like Impetigo worship.
Yeah.
Uh, they all just kind of did the same thing. They implemented samples from movies that were lesser known, or even if they were more known, just stuff I never heard of. So having the internet at my leisure, it was definitely a big segue into finding like a lot of the movies that I've gotten into through the years.
I love that. What are for people who wouldn't know, what are some of your favorite horror movies?
Um, Good question. I like I Spit on Your Grave a lot. I like the
Mm.
revenge film kind of aspect. It's definitely a hard to stomach movie, and it's pretty
Yeah.
fucked up. I'm not going to condone that aspect of it. I don't want to sound like a freak saying it's one of my favorites, but I
Yeah, of
mean,
course.
we literally wrote an entire song about it. That was the premise of Act of Revenge. That's
Mm.
actually the little, I guess, like side title of I Spit on Your Grave on the original movie posters. And I just thought that was so sick. And the movie itself is obviously very sick. Um, so just again, it coincided. No one had really sampled it before or used it yet. So I was like, all right, at least to my knowledge.
Is it kind of like a little bit of, I don't want to say a competition, but kind of like to see who can get the most obscure like movie quote in an album, or to see who can like find the band with the most obscure thing? Did you ever like feel that growing up?
Definitely is now. When I was growing up and just finding all this stuff, no, it was just like it was just fresh and new. But
Sure.
being in bands that want to use samples and want to like be a part of that, like Mulder's only done a few in our time, but
Yeah.
like I don't know, it's just in all my projects through all the years, there's been handfuls of things where it's like, all right, shit, this is a really good quote. This would be a really good like start of a song
Yeah.
or whatever, and then you're on the hunt to figure out if it's been used before, and like there's always that disappointment of finding out it has been 10 times over. But,
Yeah.
that is the competition of it. That is oh, we better figure out if this was done. And if it hasn't, we got to be the first ones to use it.
You can just feel like you want to bash your head up against like a Jersey wall or something like that on here.
But I mean, it's very just moving music. As like
Yeah.
simple as it is, they just make every note count. It's just pounding stuff. Like, I don't know. It's very primal, I guess. I don't know how
Primal is
else
an
to put it.
excellent word, especially when like talking about this guitar tone that's on here. I mean, this album was what, 1990 or 1992, and it doesn't sound any less heavy or any less menacing in 2024 or 2025 than it did back then.
Oh, absolutely agree. And I think it just comes with the music, like having the tone in your fingers and just knowing how to play with conviction and whatnot. Like, I'm not even sure this is really a super like low tuned record as far as I'm concerned, even
Yeah.
like, but it's still just very, very heavy and everything about it is just to the extreme.
Very much so, because I don't even think that death metal bands were really tuning down a lot at this point. I think it was the early to mid 90s. Someone splittingthewax@gmail.com if you're a death metal freak nerd who knows about all this shit. But it was, I mean, what was Cannibal Corpses? It was like 1993 or 4 before they tuned down to B or something like that. I think they were half step down for most of that time.
Yeah, I mean, like Obituary, No Slowly We Rot is in E standard, I'm pretty
Okay,
sure, or E flat, one of the two. A lot of those bands were just kind of doing the Slayer tuning, and
sure.
like it worked. But I feel like everyone dropped down to either D or C by at least the time this record came out, like
I got you.
92. Um, but yeah, again, I'm not really sure what tuning it is. I think it might even just be C standard, which would be cool. That's what MOLDER plays in. Good
Hell yeah.
tuning.
Dude, actually,
Uh,
that's all. I have 3 guitars tuned to that right now. I just think it's the most powerful tuning. And I used to
sounds great.
play. Yeah, I used to play in D standard just because there were a lot of like Creator played in that. I think Death played in D standard for on like some of their lighter albums and stuff like that. But I don't know, playing my Maiden songs because I basically know Maiden songs and Metallica songs on guitar, and that's basically it. But when you play those in C standard, it just sounds like it's got fucking like balls. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's got the oomph and
Yeah,
like it's easy to transcribe or transpose to the actual
very much
tuning.
so.
It doesn't sound too far off or whatever, you know.
Now we are on The Wizard of Gore, which is about the movie The Wizard of Gore. I've never seen this movie.
I'm not honestly too familiar with the movie myself either. I do remember, this is gonna date myself here, but as a kid, I don't know if you guys remember the movie Juno.
Oh yeah.
Uh, that came out, and the whole thing is she's like trying to get the dude to basically have the affair with her, leave his wife type of a deal. They're canoodling, so to say, but the whole like nerding out over an infatuation with one another's over Herschel Lewis's Wizard of Gore or whatever. I just remember they found like a VHS while they're in the dude's house.
Oh,
Uh,
I didn't remember that at all. It's been like I think it was probably college since the last time I saw that movie.
and then it just shows like I guess key component scenes of just some of the gore splatter stuff from the flick, and that's pretty much all I know of the movie. Is it's featured in Juno, and it's also an Impetigo sample slash song.
You could draw a straight line from Michael Cera to Impetigo. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible. Yeah, so that kind of answered my question a little bit because I was wondering if you were old enough for like the days of Rotten.com and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah,
You
best
were?
gore.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
I mean I wasn't supposed to be on it.
No,
Like
no, of
yeah,
course. No, no. I mean, like, I would have
we
been
definitely had it.
fucking like 13 or 12 or something like that. And
All that
granted,
shit, Newgrounds, like
yeah,
before
yeah,
Reddit,
exactly.
just like the good old days.
When the internet was a place that you went to and not some place that was like ubiquitous for those of you that are way too young to know, rotten.com was just a website where they would have literally like the most rotten vile shit like gunshot wound victims. I think that there were like 9/11 jumpers on there, shit like that.
All types
I
of nuts stuff. Yeah, it was like real faces of death.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't spend a lot of time on that because I am and still am very, very squeamish and don't really enjoy like looking at that type of shit. But of course, when you're in middle school and have middle school boyfriends and like all of that shit, you're gonna run across that stuff every once in a while. And boy, did we! Yeah, this is just like just dumb
It just
caveman
sounds
shit right
sticky.
here.
I don't know. It's so
Sticky?
sick,
Yeah,
man. Like
dude.
yeah, like it just has an ooze to it. Like the
Yeah.
vocals in particular, just unworldly, and the fact that still to this day, it's poorly imitated, and I just feel like no one's really come close to sounding like Stevo in particular, but just this style. I don't know. It's absolutely nuts.
Kind of a mix between traditional growls and more of like kind of a almost like a spoken whisper.
Definitely, it's weird. Like just his ability to even have that register, going from like a literal universal monster type of a sound to sounding like Blaine from The Accused almost. Like it's just very like punky, snotty. Like they have a song, I believe it's actually on Ultimo. It's Teenage Mucus Bitch Monster, something or other. I'm fucking drawing a blank, but it's like literally just kind of personifies like his vocal style, in my opinion. It's crazy. I don't know, just very phlegmy and just gross. Yeah, it just like hurts your fucking actual like voice to do that
Yeah,
kind of
like
shit.
maybe it's a good thing that they split up so that he can still talk nowadays or something, you know?
Yeah, very true. Never really even put that into consideration.
So you kind of mentioned this when you were talking about, discovering this band and then going into, the gore films and like the B movies and the C movies that they took the quotes from and everything like this. But where was, as far as like your journey in metal and extreme music and stuff like that, where was this as far as that? And what kind of bands did you, I mean, you mentioned a couple of them, but what other bands did you kind of like find and then get influenced by knowing about these guys?
Through this band in particular, this just kind of opened the floodgates for like grindcore and gore grind for me. So like obviously I knew about Carcass. I didn't really know about their first couple of records. I just knew
Mm.
about like Heartwork and Swan Song and whatever. Just that was what was kind of big even still when I was growing up. But yeah, it just opened the doors to bands like Blood, who they did splits with, or you know, Takashi's bands like Transgressor or Anatomia. Um, Dead Infection, Hemorrhage, uh, General Surgery, like just to name a few bands. A lot of just like I guess a kind of carcassy, pathological, gore grind, worshipy stuff. Um, Hemdale, Exhumed, like it really just opened the door to find like anything that was like almost death metal, but just had more again that like tongue in cheek, fun, gory kind of vibe. And like I said too, just Razorback Records. They did a
Yeah.
lot of reissues of Impetigo stuff. So just going through their catalog and just anything that looked cool, I would just pick it up. Like
I love doing that too, as far as just like, no, okay, this album art's sick. Don't care what it sounds like. It's probably cool. You know what I mean?
I don't admittedly do that quite as much anymore. Now that the
Well, it's
internet
hard
is
to
such
anymore,
a
and
luxury.
especially with like vinyls costing $30 or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, like I hate to be a hater, but I don't want to waste money on shit that's just not gonna cut the mustard, so to say. And
Yeah.
old heads can cry all they want. They could listen to fucking CDs or LPs or tapes before they left the stores too. So I guess I'm just cutting that trip out to my local goody music or whatever, that doesn't even exist anymore. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just kind of an easy luxury to not take advantage of. I don't know. I think you're dumb if you don't do it. Get over your pride. It's okay to listen to stuff and try things before you commit to them.
Yeah, I mean, you won't find me arguing on that, and we have many conversations on this street or on this show about streaming and albums and old men yelling at cloud and young women yelling at cloud and like all of that other bullshit. But I mean, I do have to say, like, my job, quote unquote, is to try and keep up as much as I can with the current state of music and everything like that, and whether it's browsing through metal archives or release calendars from like record labels or some shit, I still will do a like, hey, I'm gonna check this band out because they have like a dragon on their cover, or because like,
Oh
holy
yeah.
shit, that's like a million skulls on there
I
and
mean,
things like
that's
that,
a
you know?
1000% of the reason why I even, I guess, check out what I check out even on the internet.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm not like in a record store flipping through a bin of shit I've never heard of in my life and just picking things on merit based on art alone. Like,
Yeah.
those days unfortunately have passed. There's not even really record stores anymore. And those that do exist are just selling Metallica reprints. I don't know. It's not the same. Like, just shit that it's either I'm completely uninterested in or I've owned since, I've gotten into the shit. So it's just as cool as it is that you can still get the quintessentials and the classics and people can still access that. I without wanting to sound arrogant and beyond that, I want to find other stuff. I want to find this stuff I haven't or haven't listened to, etc.
100%. And I talked about this with a previous guest, but my in high school, my go-to Friday night was Tower Records at the shopping center, like behind the high school and everything like that. And
Oh
that
yeah, they have one in Chicago. I
Y-
remember Tower Records.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
gone now
I went
too.
to one in Dublin a couple of years ago. I didn't even know that they still. I know they exist online still, but I didn't even know that there were brick and mortar locations still in the world or anything like that. But
It's very
um,
cool. I didn't even know they were online even. So
yeah, no, they
awesome
are.
that you were able to go to an actual location.
My understanding, I did a little bit of digging. My understanding is it still is the people who like were able to whatever hold on to the bits and scraps of the name or the register or the trademark or anything like that. So they do have a pretty decent selection. I bought my last couple of record hauls from there online. But yeah, I mean they would also have deals where it's like, here's some clearance for like five for $2 or like two CDs for five, and then it's like, all right, cool. If I'm spending like $3 on a CD or something like that, I'll go give it a chance. But I agree with you, man, too. And it's like I'm not going to spend $30 on something that I don't know for sure is going to get spins on my vinyl player over and over and over again because I bought so many CDs as a kid. Like we're talking like over 500 that I was just like lugging around for a really long time. So I am being very selective with the vinyls that I get.
Definitely. That's another thing. It's just space. Like my collections are getting out of hand. My LPs are pretty like tame, but yeah, I've got like 3 to 5 thousand cassettes. I got to go through and actually figure out what
Hey, death
I
metal fan
have.
collecting cassettes? What the fuck is this? What are you
Oh
saying?
yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, my dad collected them. That's how I got into metal. So most of which I just was fortunate enough to inherit. Once he
That's
was like, "All right, I'm
awesome.
buying CDs now," but it was just like, "All right, don't get rid of these. I want to hold on to these bad boys," you know.
Fuck yeah, what's some of your favorite stuff that you got from him?
From him, definitely just like a lot of the thrash metal stuff, things like Exodus, Bonded by Blood, Helloween,
Dude,
Slayer,
hell yeah.
just again the quintessential shit.
Yeah,
Annihilator, Alice in Hell, uh,
very, very cool.
Candlemass, Epicus, Doomicus, Metallicus. Like it's all over the board, but it's all pretty much just traditional heavy metal to, I guess, proto death metal. He had like first Obituary, first Death, things like a Bad Nature, but
That's all. It
is
sounds
I
like your
guess
dad was like right in the shit when he was
Oh yeah,
younger.
he was born in like '64, so he was like in his 20s, right in the '80s. So it was right place, right time, and
Hell
just
yeah.
was able to get into a lot of cool shit that way.
Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk Pro Skater
Oh yeah,
soundtrack
dude.
was huge into getting
I
me
was gonna
into
say
rock and
video
roll.
games and then just like local rock radio. Hell yeah, dude. My
If
band
you were
was
lucky enough to
Disturbed.
have a local rock radio,
You know.
yeah.
Oh, we did. We had like fuck, I can't remember. It was like 94.7 The Drive or some goofy shit. But like they would play like Linkin Park, Disturbed, Korn, Metallica, but then it would also play like Queen, Zeppelin, more like I guess your classic rock kind of stuff. It was like a
Yeah.
weird Mendel of all of it, so it was cool. Definitely had that growing up, but that's what piqued my interest for sure.
Yeah, I remember. So we had a DC 101 when I was growing up. I grew up in Northern Virginia. So they did, Godsmack Awake was on there a lot. Your System of a Downs and your Audio Slaves and stuff like that. It was a little bit more of your like rock friendly stuff, not a
Yeah,
lot of
like
your
just
like
alternative '90s rock and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
exactly. But I remember one time I was visiting family in Phoenix. I think I was in like early high school, so I was probably like 14 or something like that. And I was just like popping around in the passenger seat and like to rent a car, and I heard Aces High on just like a regular rock station. I was like, "What the fuck is this? This is incredible! Like they play Iron Maiden on the radio. What?" It was great. I don't remember what station that was, but shout out to whatever DJ was manning the controls in Phoenix that day.
Yeah, the rules for sure.
Mm.
I got to hear like Merciful Fate on local radio once. That was
Oh
pretty
yeah.
interesting. It was like a 3 p.m. spin too. It wasn't 2 in the morning on a Tuesday. But like, yeah, just nuts. It's
I
just
love
cool,
that.
but it's long gone, at least locally where we're at. All the rock radio is dead. The Loop was the big one here that's gone now.
So we are in what is this Cannibal Ballet right now, which is
Oh
just some
yeah.
like tribal disgusting. They've got some distortion on the vocals and stuff like that that makes it sound extra gurgly.
I'm curious to know how much of it's actually like shifted. I've never actually reached out, asked the questions, and I've never really seen them addressed directly in interviews about any of their recordings or whatever. But I don't know, it's like you'll watch live videos of them and he's like doing this. And
Really?
it's yeah, it's very, very, very close, if not like exactly the same. So there's obviously delay and like something going on, but I just don't know how much of it's actually like it shifted.
Yeah, spittingthewax at gmail.com. If you are the producer of this or know the answer or are Impetigo themselves, and if you're listening to this, thank you very much. I don't know why you would be, but I appreciate you guys very, very much. So it's definitely double tracked because I can hear it in both ears, and then it sounds like there may be like just like a little bit of like a phaser, just like you're saying, just like a little bit of a touch. But yeah, because there's something there, but like I honestly I wouldn't be surprised nowadays. Are you familiar with what they call themselves funeral grind band Knoll?
Yeah, they're on prosthetic as well. Or at least they were at one point. We've actually played a few shows with them. I like them a lot. Very like full of hell-esque sounding stuff. And I'm
Very,
sure they hate the
very
comparison and
much.
get it a bunch, but it's a good thing. It sounds like very good stuff.
Yeah, no, no, very much. Jamie is the singer. I've interviewed him a couple times. Great dude. I mean, they're local to where I'm at, Nashville, Tennessee, and but they like Jamie, that singer was like when he was telling me about the new record, he was telling me like, oh, there's absolutely zero layering in this album. Like all of that is overtones and what you hear. And I was like I'm not gonna call you a bullshitter, but like, oh, like okay, dude, great. And then I saw
Yeah.
them live, and it sounded the exact same thing. And I was like it's one thing to hear it on record, but then hear that shit like there's four voices coming out from him like at once live. You're just like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah, no, definitely.
I don't put it past anybody anymore. Motherfuckers out there are talented.
People got that David Lee Roth thing going on, but with death metal, it's fucking nuts.
Yeah. What do you think's your favorite song on this record, dude?
Honestly, it might be this one.
Oh,
It
really?
just
Okay.
grooves hard. It's a really fun riff. I don't think it's too long of a song, which is like super important to me. I think it's like just under 3 minutes if I'm remembering correctly. But like, yeah, I don't know. Just this, it's just nasty. It's a knuckle dragger, so to say. I don't know. It just makes you want to do bad shit. Just put that nasty face on you, and it just makes you want to do not good things, whatever that may mean. But like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just like knock over mailboxes with a bat or something like that. I don't
This is
know.
like, that iconic scene in Office Space with the printer. This would be my song with it. It's just creep cross central, dude. Like, yeah, it's just good shit. Squirm like a worm to this one. Like we were discussing earlier, it's not even so much the song that's ridiculous. It's just, a 2 minute sample in front of it before it gets going.
Some of those, like I Work for the Street Cleaner, was mostly the sample on that one, but that was also a really long song. But most of that is just the lyrics in that, because they're just like so the dudes were like rolling like on their fucking inspiration that night with just like how
For
many
sure.
ways can we describe fucking like picking up roadkill and then going back home to fuck it, and it just like turns out a lot of different ways, a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Dude, he's so creative. That's like, I know it's like early on with the death metal, but again, he's just one of those dudes that lyrically, I don't think anyone's even really come close to. There's just such a like, let me tell you like a little ditty, let me tell you a tale type of a vibe to like
Yeah.
all of their lyrics, where it's campy and it's fun, but it's also at the same time like super over the top and gross and just ridiculous. But huge influence for sure.
So how did you approach your lyrics this time around? Because I know that there's a lot of like corpse copulation and like, disemboweling a lot of people and gurgling and all that other type of stuff. Did you try and tap into anything new this time around, or are you more or less, for lack of a better word, comfortable with kind of how you present your lyrics and your stories?
I'd say I'm in a state of comfort, but even in that, it's complete discomfort. Um, I don't know. I'm not super into writing lyrics. I'm not a emotional, introspective dude. I don't have like a message really or anything to say, and I don't
Yeah.
want to pretend that I do. So if I'm going to pretend to write about anything, I think it is more fun and more silly and more entertaining to write, I guess, about just the horror aspect of things, the gore stuff. I don't know. It's just zany. It's campy. It's goofy, and it puts a smile on my face writing it because it's just so ridiculous. I guess I don't know. It's the one thing that yeah, no, it's just the one subject matter that I guess I'm comfortable with. I'm familiar enough with the movies, the music, everything else that I take in. That
Yeah.
I don't want to call it second nature, but I don't really have to think about it as much. I focus more so just on writing actual music, and like anytime we do anything, lyrics have literally always come last.
But like, correct me if I'm wrong too. I feel like that is kind of like maybe not comes with the territory, but I feel like that is not surprising for like death metal fans or musics or whatever. Like, I always feel. I mean, you listen to fucking Mortician, you can't understand a fucking thing that those guys are saying unless that you go and actually like look at the lyrics, because they're like barely even enunciating words and stuff like that. So like. I don't know. I guess that it just like comes with the territory of being in like a death metal band. Do you think, as far as like lyrics secondary?
Definitely, it's just part of it. I don't know, like Obituary, for example, like they don't even really sing anything at all half the time. And I think that rules. And if you're a big enough fan of Mulder, you'd probably at this point realize that I don't either. Like as far as singing live goes, it's just all patterns. I remember where they're supposed to go, but it's just too many words that again, I didn't feel very passionately about writing to begin with. Yeah, I don't want to say I don't care. I'm not
Yeah,
trying
no,
to
no,
cop
no. But you
out.
said you were
Like,
having fun, which I think is like the
yeah,
biggest thing,
it's
And like,
I'm more interested in my voice sounding the part and like using it like an instrument, so to say, as
yeah,
opposed to making sure that I'm like reciting the exact same shit that I wrote down and recorded. I'm more worried about the riff and the music itself being like proper and sounding correct. So
yeah.
it's easier to just kind of make noises with your mouth instead of focus on words that are coming out for sure. So a lot of it is just kind of unintentional, just focusing too hard on playing guitar that just everything else becomes secondary. But
Hmm.
some of it too is just I don't want to sound terrible, but it's like I just don't really care about learning the lyrics. Like,
Yeah, no, but like I mean, I mean, I'm glad that you're just like, fucking being honest and everything like that. And B, I mean, it's just like I feel like your average Mulder fan is going to be more like they're gonna know when the riffs come and when they don't, as opposed to like what the lyrics are and shit like that, right? You know what
yeah,
I mean?
I often will find people pretending to know the words. Like I'll look in the crowd, which is like endearing and it's cool. I'm not like talking shit, but it's
Yeah.
like, dude, that is not what I'm saying, and that's not what I wrote on the album. I don't know what you're mouthing, but like, keep up the energy. I'm glad you're into it, but it is hilarious because it's like, jokes on you, buddy. I'm not singing the right shit either. Like,
Incredible. This song is so fucking. It's like goofy. Like you read this, it's like you can't read any of these lyrics with a straight face. But it is also
That's
just
what I'm
like,
saying. It's fun, It's like
yeah,
so just over the top to the point where it's not like, oh my God, like, can you believe what he wrote? It's like, oh man, look what he wrote. That's fucking ridiculous. That's hilarious. Like it's beyond being like offended. It's just so juvenile. But again, like there is a smart ass cynicalness to it as well, where again, you could argue is being immature, but like I think there is like a very intelligent I guess, approach to the way that he did it. I mean, all these years later, it's still again lyrics that I remember. I don't know. He just has these little lines, these little one-liners almost, where it's like Andrew Dice Clay, but it's gore metal. I don't like
yeah.
know
No,
how
I know
else to put
exactly
it.
what you're saying. Like there, it's like a hint of whimsy in these things where they're trying to
Absolutely.
crack open these like the putting yourself in the mind of a serial killer or what this weird person who's shitting and pissing in restaurant buffets and getting everybody sick is like would be thinking and stuff like that. And like but like it's grounded as like kind of stupid as it is, it's like grounded in reality because I remember watching this documentary on Netflix called Wild Wild Country, which is a phenomenal documentary on a cult in like Utah or Colorado or something like that. And it was this like Indian guru bought land legally in Colorado and started a whole like what is it, like a compound on there, and then as people were
Hmm.
moving there they moved to the neighboring town and started like applying for like city council positions and stuff like that, so the cult started slowly taking over
Brad
this
in, yeah,
town. Yeah,
that's pretty
and
cool.
yeah, it's fucking scary. But and then at one point they went through and started doing basically this exact shit. Not like pissing and shitting, but like putting, poisoning the buffets and stuff like that in town. And like it became
Yeah,
this
definitely.
whole big thing. And this one is this, it says, with joy, I take my urine and steaming feces, smear it and mix it in with the food you eat. Like there's nothing poetic about that, but it's still
Yeah,
just like, yeah.
but the way it's delivered, that's a big part of it too. Like I said, I don't know. He's just got a very fun, like almost storytelling vibe. It like reminds me of like being in the library and your librarian putting on like a spooky voice for some brief ass character in a book or whatever. It's just
Yeah.
that, but for 50 minutes on top of some sick riffs. It's
Yeah,
cool.
it's just a fuck, yeah. All right, so this
All right, this is the
is
last
the
one.
last one. So this is from a movie I've never seen called Let Sleeping Corpses Lie.
Never actually seen the movie myself either.
Yeah, I might have to put it on the list. The cover looks pretty cool.
I feel like it might be a little too old for me, but
Oh yeah.
I'll give it a go. Some stuff's just too dated. While I appreciate the samples and again just the vibe that they bring, they have a specific sound. They have a whole a whole niche or whatever. But yeah, some of the shit's just too slow and not really, I guess, over the top enough.
I
I
know
can appreciate and
exactly what you
respect
mean.
certain things, but once you get to a certain point with music, movies, whatever, it's hard to, I guess, regress and go backwards. This one rules too. Another creepy crawly one.
His voice sounds even different on this one too. It's like it's going through, like he's singing into a fan almost, you know, because it's got that like little bit of distortion on it, but it doesn't.
Probably did it all in one day too. Like knowing
Yeah,
how bands work with their budgets and whatnot. And like
yeah,
this is clearly like no easy task on anybody's voice, throat, whatever. So I can imagine if he's just going for it, that by the end of whatever, I'm not sure if they recorded it in order or what the deal is,
yeah.
or how many different takes he really truly got. But yeah, for sure, just started to wane on him. Even myself, I try and do all my vocals in one day
Oh yeah.
because I just want to get shit done. Like, if I'm driving the hour to get somewhere and save the money and do whatever.
Well, and you guys did that with this new album, right? Did you guys track it like really, really quick compared to previous ones?
Yes and no. We just had less time to do it. Like
Mm.
with the last ones, it's like we did technically, yes, take a while to record it, but it's because we were fucking around and smoking weed, and
Yeah.
drinking, and hanging out with our friends because our friends were recording us instead of, okay, we need to just get this done. No extracurriculars, no friends, don't bring any fucking beer. Let's just like get it done so we're not taking a month. But that's the
Yeah.
thing, that month would really truly only be like 3 hours on the Saturday, 3 hours on Sunday, like 4 times. So instead of doing that, we just did it like 2 10-hour days basically, and just kind of got everything done, at least on my end, like
Yeah.
getting guitars and vocals. I would have gotten done in one day, but I ended up breaking the shit out of my nose at a violence show at Reggie's earlier this year.
Oh
And
shit.
I went to go record my vocals and it hurt really bad. So I decided to wait a little bit on that one. But yeah, otherwise it
Yeah.
probably would have been out like, I don't know, maybe right now. But because I had to wait a couple of weeks just to, I guess, heal up and actually get it done, we're at November 8th,
Did you just
which
catch
is
like a
cool.
stray elbow or something like that in the pit?
Honestly, I don't even know. I don't remember really getting hit. I just remember just kind of like pushing, and then I felt like a crunch and I was like, oh shit, like I'm like bleeding bad. And
Damn.
yeah, so I guess just the adrenaline of what was going on, like moshing,
Yeah.
whatever. I just didn't really notice, but I definitely got.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, I mean, if it fucking pushed the album back, so props to whoever threw that in
Yeah,
the pit, man. Like violence pits at Reggie's, no joke, dude.
yeah, it was a good time.
You know the battle scars that we wear sometimes. You know,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
getting back to these vocals, it's just like it, but it still is like it's a dynamic that you haven't heard in this record before, which I think is also cool because you have this just like, meat and potatoes death metal that still is diverse through and it does different things on it, you know?
That's what I like about them too. Is I feel like I don't want to say what carries this band is the diversity of the vocals, but like yeah, it's just so dynamic on top of something that's just very again primal, less is more, meat and potatoes to the point. So it's like you just take this super punk approach of just writing and playing music, and then you add like this super intricate. What it's almost like, not to like compare it to this. I know everyone's gonna hate this, but it's like kind of how like Mike Patton is. Faith No
Mm,
More, granted, is a very interesting band, and I'm not taking
yeah.
away from their music, but it's just like I don't know what he does is so just all over the fucking place. It's not just one thing ever, almost to a fucking fault. Like I don't know, like you go see him live, he doesn't sing anything like the records because he's just wants to try other avenues with it. So it's like I respect it in one sense and I hate it in another because I just want to hear those fucking songs how they are on the records. But he's using his voice as an instrument and as a tool as opposed to just like, oh, I don't know, I got forced into being a singer or whatever.
Dude, there was it. So, Horror of the Zombies by Impetigo. We spent a lot of time chatting about it, but final thoughts. Stamp this one home for us, Aaron.
I think it's a quintessential record. I think it's the epitome of all things fun, gross, extreme, over the top, but yet refined and listenable, palatable. Give it a spin for yourself, I suppose. My opinion only really goes so far, but yeah, I think that this is one worth at least listening to, if not, diving, further into.
Aaron, thank you so much for jumping on and sharing this with me. I'm going to go down a disgusting death metal rabbit hole, and I hope that other people will as well. And I know that by the time that we talk about this, there will be a new MOLDER record, Catastrophic Reconfiguration, for people to listen to. I think personally it's the best thing that y'all have done yet, and I can tell that you guys like buckled down and got to work on it and have been like working on your sound and know who you are. And yeah, dude, I think that there are going to be a lot of people that really, really dig that record and are going to be talking about it once it comes out.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, man. Thank you very much, for real.
Like Andy Dufresne at the end of The Shawshank Redemption, we just crawled through a river of shit and came out clean on the other side. Huge thanks to Aaren Pantke of MOLDER for sharing Horror of the Zombies with us. I hope that you enjoyed that journey through the ooze and the muck and the viscera and the entrails and all of those other cool, disgusting words. If you're not normally a death metal person, I hope that you'll give that record a spin again, or just wander down some 90s death metal rabbit holes. At the very least, give MOLDER's newest album, Catastrophic Reconfiguration, a listen or three. You know what to expect by now, I gather. Bone-crushing riffs, brain-dead stomps, and songs about copulating with corpses, bursting innards, and overdue burials. It's available everywhere now via Prosthetic Records. Definitely let me know what you think of Horror of the Zombies, of Impetigo, of MOLDER, of death metal, of samples, of Henry Lee Lucas, whatever it is that is on your mind, either in the comments below or at spittingthewax@gmail.com. I'm very interested to know what your experience is with this one, with death metal, extreme metal in general, or just music, you know, whatever it is. On that note, I have a comment that was left on our last episode with Terminal Sleep's Beckthor Weston that I wanted to share with you all because I thought it was just really cool. This one comes from Davil5987 on YouTube, who says, "This comment will be long-winded, but as a massive fan of Terminal Sleep, Linkin Park, and Cats, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you very much for that. It's funny that this was recorded in September because I, like you both, was just hearing rumblings of the Linkin Park reunion, and I got to see them in London at the end of September. They were absolutely amazing, and getting to hear so many of these songs live was so fucking special to me. If you had told me that would be happening at the start of September, I wouldn't have believed you. I'll also be seeing Terminal Sleep for the very first time in Dublin this month, and I am stoked. I also wanted to mention I became a Terminal Sleep fan from the most unlikely of sources. Myself and my fiance are huge Demi Lovato fans, and I was watching her list off her favorite metal and hardcore bands on Jose Mangan's Sirius XM show. I had never come across them and sought them out. So yeah, I became a huge fan because of Demi Lovato. That is the fucking coolest shit that I have ever heard. Thank you for sharing that with us, Davil5987. I actually remember Demi doing that spot last year, but I didn't realize until that comment that Terminal Sleep got a shout out on that. And my understanding is the band basically shit themselves when they found out on that. I'm not sure that they still believed that that happened. But again, thank you so much for the comment. I'm so glad that Linkin Park was everything that you wanted them to be. And what's curious, timing-wise, you get to see Terminal Sleep on their first ever UK European tour, which is happening the day before that this episode comes out. So I hope you had an amazing time, and please share your experiences with us again. That's all that I have for you, everybody. That's it for this episode. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe. Follow us on socials at Spinning the Wax, and you can follow me at StayPuffed_Malo on Instagram. That's like the only thing I have right now. I haven't moved to Blue Sky or fucking Red Note or Threads or anything like that. But if you enjoyed what you heard here today or at any point in this series, please share this with a friend, a family member, significant other, or pet. And also consider becoming a Patreon subscriber if you enjoy this content. Patreon.com/spinningthewax, where you can get uncut versions of these episodes to listen along to the album with us. You'll also get new music updates every single week, access to a ton of the playlists that I make, photos of my pets, and a wonderful metal community to hang out with. Shout out to our marshmallows, Chris Fletch, Zero Signal, Triceracop, and Dactyls, and shout out to the rest of our lovely supporters out there. Stick around in 2 weeks, my friend. We have bassist Benjamin Mainwaring of The Nightmares bringing on a record from a band that I actively dislike and can't stand. So that one is going to be a lot of fun, I promise. But to catch up from a couple of records, or from a couple of recordings that I did at the end of last year, I will be releasing another episode next week featuring guitarist Jamie Southern from Newcastle, UK upstarts Giant Walker. We're going to be listening to Soundgarden's Super Unknown. It's going to be great. Join us then. We will see you. Until that time, everybody, take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe and stay sane. Stay heavy. Stay puffed.